Hello, everyone. Welcome. Awesome to see you all rolling on in. I'm just going to give it a few kind of minutes just so that everyone can kind of slowly make their way. It's awesome to see how many people are rolling in. So this is really, really exciting. But yes, we'll give it a moment. So grab your coffee, do your thing, settle in, eat your brekkie if you need to, and just sit back and enjoy listening to me for the next hour. But yes, I'll give it a bit more time. So just kind of hold on a second, and then we'll get into everything. Okay, hello everyone. I think the team is kind of slowing down a little bit more, so I'm just going to have a little bit of a chat with you first. I just want to let you know Sophie is also here with me today. She's just in the chat, so feel free to pop in there, say hello, give us a good morning, and she'll do the same in return. And then also she's going to join in for that Q&A side of things when we get to that. But also, if you have any questions or anything like that to start off already, just pop them into either the chat or in preferably the Q&A section so that everyone can kind of see it. I won't touch on them just yet, but we will definitely get to it in the Q&A section. So I'll run through all those things first that we wanted to go through today, and then we'll get to that part and me and Sophie will jump in together. So yeah, feel free to find that Q&A button down the bottom of your Zoom screen or even in the chat section and jump in and say hello, get your questions rolling, and we can go from there. Awesome. Okay, well, welcome everybody. Very, very exciting webinar for you all today. This is our staff training webinar with SiteUp Pro. So pretty much anything in regards to your health and safety staff training that you want to be implementing into your SiteUp Pro account is what we're going to go through today. So really helpful if you kind of aren't sure on what to do or how to implement it yet, or if you just, kind of know already what you really want to achieve and just want to see what is available inside App Pro, and you can just jump into it, go for your life and see how it all works for you. Cool. Hello, everyone. So excited to see all the mornings coming in. There's lots of you joining today, so that's very, very exciting to have so many people getting amongst it. So without further ado, I'm just going to kind of run you through what we're doing today and what we kind of want to run through. So starting off, we'll be jumping into an account that I have that will be kind of going through each of those different ways you can implement your staff training health and safety docs, and how we can track those, how we can export them, and all that amazing kind of information we want to gather. Then we will be jumping into the Q&A section. So again, Sophie Rose will be joining us for that, and she'll be able to kind of also help you out, and we'll kind of work together on that one. Then lastly, I just have some support and kind of success resources that I can guide you to. Don't worry, because in the end, you will get an email as well with different resources linked in them. So don't feel like you need to write it down, but I'm just going to kind of put it up there so you can see and go to those locations if you need to. Awesome. All right, let's jump in. I think everyone's kind of in and we're all settled, so let's go for it. Okay, so just to clarify, I have my account open here to the left. This is the admin console, so that kind of website of things where we do the main setup and administrative work. And then to the right, I've just got the app version. So this is kind of where the team will live a bit more, and I'm going to have it here so we can kind of reference across to it when we do this different kind of setup in the admin console and see how it flows through to the app for the team. So first off, the main thing I want you to start with, or the biggest kind of way to load in your staff training of health and safety docs, is with certificates and permits. So loading in your certificates and permits is where we're going to begin, and this is in teams and users. So within here, we obviously have our list of our teams and users. This is where we can kind of jump into, say, Kale, for example. I'm going to go into the edit button here. And from here, I want to go into my resources tab. So this here, you can see I've added a few already as an example. It's just some user-specific resources that we've uploaded. So I've got here my first aid certificate, a driver's license, some working at height stocks. These are kind of just examples we can use. You can definitely put in for our New Zealand clients, any site-safe passports as well, and just licenses and things like that in general, even qualifications too. So this is where we load them in. We can start off with the orange plus button. What we can do is either do a document or a URL. So if you do have all of your resources on a shared drive or SharePoint or something like that, we can just pick on this one here, and it allows us to put that URL in nice and easy. If the team have access to that document within your shared drive, then they'll be able to see this document through the app. Cool. So that is loading in the URL. Now, if we want to do a document, we click on this icon here. We can either start off with just a basic document that we can kind of name and then put a description to, and obviously upload that PDF or JPEG kind of document. And then we want to make sure that it's got stuff or just training attached to it as well for the category, so that it pulls through to the right places, like our training history, which I'll go through as well. So yes, that is kind of how we load in the document side of things. And then we also have the certificates and permits option. Now, this one's really good if you have an expiry date on any kind of training documentation you want to add to the team. So I might have my first aid certificate, for example, that generally has about 2 years. So what we'll put in here is the name of the person and their first aid, just the first aid certificate wording, and then put in an expiry date for when that needs to be renewed so that we can keep track of it. Now, what we can do is also upload the PDF, just like we did with the documents, and also select training as well. Then we'll click save, and it will add it to the user like I have here. Awesome. Now, these different resources are also going to have an expiry date that we can kind of keep track of as well. So anything that's showing up in red is obviously overdue. Anything in black is kind of coming up. Now, this is kind of viewable from a few different places, so we can kind of jump into your resources tab as well from the admin console to kind of see these documents. But first, I want to jump into the mobile where you can see these documents here as well. So first, we're going to jump in as my user. So I'm Rochelle. I can go into the menu here, and I can go into the users section. So we're going to go in here, search up Kale because he's our example. Open up Kale's user account, and at the very bottom, you can see here that first aid certificate, the working at heights, and the driver's license. Now, just the thing to be aware of as well, because my user is an administrator, I'm able to see all of Kale's certs and permits. But if Kale, for example, is just a field worker, so that lowest level of user role access, he's only going to be able to see himself, his own resources. Can't see any other field workers, just for kind of security purposes. Obviously, we don't want everyone seeing everyone's driver's licenses or first aid certificates and things like that. Then you also have a few other kind of levels of security, like field workers can see their own, but not, and all the field workers, tablet managers can see their own ones, and any kind of field workers, but not other tablet managers. So things like that, just think about your different levels of user roles and then kind of guide your team to the right direction so they can see other people's information if they need to. But that is how you see it in the mobile version. Cool. Now in the admin console, where we want to kind of view this documentation is by exiting out of here, going into your resources section, and over to certs and permits. On documents here, you can see all of the general documents added in. And in regards to kind of any documentation as well, outside of staff training even, you can also allocate these to locations and kind of different pieces of equipment and stuff as well. So that's a nice little added tip there for just resources in general. But we also want to jump into the certs and permits section. And this is where I can kind of fine tune exactly what I want to look at in regards to especially those expiry days. So when I want to track what's kind of coming up to be renewed, first aid certificates, licenses, all that kind of stuff, I'm going to come here and see it all in one place across all of the users. So what I'll do, for example, say we're looking at that first aid certificate example, I'll type in here first, all of my users who have first aid certificates loaded against their name will show up here. As I can see, Kale and Sally Jones are both the ones that have theirs kind of overdue. So now I will know I need to reach out to them. You can make a corrective action in the mobile version for them to kind of get that document sent through to you. And then what we can do is go back into the teams and users section and upload that new document, just change over the PDF that's added in there, update that kind of expiry date, and we've now got that newer version ready to go, and we can kind of track them all in this area here. Perfect. So that's how we can kind of filter down our list to see exactly specific resources and kind of who they're applied to and how they're going to need to be expired or refreshed. And then what we want to do is maybe you want to kind of get a list of all the teams' kind of certs and permits out as a register as such. So what I might go into is the top right here, and we can click on that kind of export into CSV option. So I'm going to click on this. As you can see, this gives us options to kind of choose which kind of certs and permits who belong to which areas out specific to what we're going to get. So for example, I only want to get the staff training in this example. So I'll only click on the staff members, and now I can choose which staff members I want to pull the certs and permits from. So maybe I only want Bailey's, I might want Kale as well, choose both of his ones. I might want mine as well, and only those 5 or 4 I'm going to grab. So when I kind of export this as a CSV, it'll only pull out all the certs and permits for those specific users. Alternatively, we can click on select all staff members, and this will pick a big register of all the certs and permits you want to grab. Now, obviously, for that, we might only want first aid certificates or qualifications. So once you've exported the full list into a CSV, from there, you can kind of filter it in Excel or Numbers or whatever kind of app you have in regards to your Excel or CSV kind of view. And then you can kind of filter down what you want to pull out and just remove the stuff you don't need. Awesome. So that is how we can kind of filter by staff. As you can see, obviously here, there's a few other options as well. So this is in regards to certs and permits for all those other categories or areas you can upload certs and permits to. So for example, you've got your sites and projects. That's another way to kind of pull that out as external from kind of staff training. Awesome. So that is the gist of where you can find your resources within the admin console as well. And then how we can kind of keep track of those expiry dates and pull out that whole register of those certs and permits. Beautiful. Okay, from here as well, we want to go into our forms. So we kind of might have some forms that we want to build that also link to our staff training. We've now just gone through how to upload your certs and permits and any documentation, but you might actually want to have something interactive that the team can go into the app and maybe fill out a form that is also going to save in towards this kind of side of things. So as you can see here, I've got 3 kind of main staff training forms that come up in your Site It Pro account. So the quiz is the first one I'm going to jump onto. So in our orange plus button, always handy for when we want to create a custom form, we can go into here and it's going to give us that blank template as we love. Now, when you're creating a quiz, we specifically want to go and tick this box here in the form settings. This is just going to kind of change the limitations around how the form can be built. So for example, here, you're going to kind of go down, set your name, so call it whatever kind of quiz you want to call it. We can then go and assign it to user groups as well if you want to limit who sees this quiz. So maybe I only want people who manage vehicles or equipment to have this vehicle quiz as an example. So you would click on that user group, limit it down to them, and then we're ready to go for them to see it in their app. We also want to make sure that it has got the training category selected so that it also hard codes and pulls through to all of the right kind of areas we want it to in regards to our training. Then from there, you'll go do the form design. Now, I have already built one, so I'm not going to build one off the kind of par right now. But as you can see, I've got my health and safety quiz that I've already pre-built to show you guys. I'm going to edit this so we can kind of dive into it a bit more. As you can see, I've named it. It's got that tick box selected, so we know it's a quiz. We now can go through. It's got training allocated to it as a category. And now I've got my form design where I've got all my beautiful questions being asked. Now, as you can see, to start off, I've got a bit of instruction text up here. So from the right-hand box, which can sometimes float around the screen a little bit depending on how zoomed in you are, You can choose to have a collapsible panel or instruction text. Instruction text is just kind of a white text that will show. It's really handy if you do want to give a bit of instruction before the quiz begins or they start the quiz. Whereas the collapsible panel is what I've used here, and it kind of shows up in the app as a yellow banner. And I'll show you when we can jump into the app as well. But I've put a bit of instruction here saying this kind of needs to be added or done before, after the induction to site and things like that. Then what I've done is I've added a header. So I've kind of broken down my quiz into different sections. So I've used this header option here to add in my construction site basics section of this quiz. And then I've gone and added all my questions in regards to the construction site basics. So in this example here, the first question has a multi-choice option. Now, this is one of the two options you can choose within a quiz. So you've got multi-choice here or a yes, no. And multi-choice obviously allows us to give us those few different options that the team can then pick from. So we write our question out in the question text section. You can give a prompt if you need to as well. We've chosen our multi-choice answer type. And then I've written out each of the different options that they could choose from. Now, obviously, because it's a quiz, we want to be able to make sure that they have a right answer, right? So at the very bottom here, we can select the correct answer that we want them to provide. And that means that it will give them a kind of a pass or fail at the end of the quiz, because we know what is correct. And then what they've answered will kind of give us that guideline on that pass or fail. So that is that first answer type and how we can kind of set that up. And then within the second one, I've just got our yes, no option. So obviously this one's a really simple one. They literally just give a yes, no kind of answer to this question that I've provided. And then I've got here, my correct answer is going to be no for this question. So those are the two options there with your answer types and how they'll show up. So have a bit of a play, jump into that form design, build your quiz out, put in headers, instruction text, use those two different answer types, and then give your correct answers as well, so we can get that pass or fail option at the end of the quiz. Now, once we've built it, it obviously flows through to the app as well. So we're going to go into the app here, and I'm just going to go into the ad hoc or orange plus button down the bottom right to find all those general forms we want here. As you can see in my form settings, it is a form that is accessed from the ad hoc form list, because it's more of an as and when required thing. The team will just kind of go and do quizzes when they're prompted to, or after their induction or something like that, depending on the process you've put in place for your quizzes. Now, as you can see, I'm going to search up, I'll just do quiz. If I could spell it correctly. It's too early in the morning, guys. Then I'm going to find my health and safety quiz. I can open that up. And as you can see here, I've got that big yellow banner that's got that instruction text. If you wanted the white instruction text, it would just be coming up as white. And then we've got here my header and my first two questions. So this one here with the multi-choice lets me kind of choose which one I want. I can choose that. And then the second one, I can choose yes or no. And if I choose yes, then we can kind of have that completed. Once I've gone through the rest of the quiz and I click to complete it, it'll then give me my pass rate, and it'll also show me which questions I got wrong and the actual correct answer. Then we can kind of just exit out of it, and then it's kind of all done. So we can see that my pass rate is 0 because I didn't fully finish the quiz, but that's all good. There you go. So you can see my answers, they were wrong. So now we can kind of see what was to be fixed. Beautiful. So that is the idea of quizzes, team. We're going to kind of build it in the admin console first, in that form side of things, definitely making sure that we choose to make it a quiz. So we have those two answer types limited. And then we can go into the mobile app and see how we can complete the quiz over there. Awesome. All right. Now, in regards to a few other forms that we've got available as well, we have this induction checklist. This is more for kind of a new employee, so someone who's just started with the team. A lot of people use this and duplicate it a few times for things like subcontractors or just visitors. So you can use this form in a few different ways, but really it kind of just crosses the checklist items of what we need to kind of make sure that people are inducted on site. So they know, okay, we've got this, this, and this. You've now got all your PPE, you know when your leave is and how to kind of log all that. That kind of stuff is in here. Obviously, this is definitely able to be edited. So jump into the edit icon of that. And within this, we can go and change it to different user groups if we need to. We can kind of go into that form design, move these questions around if you want to, as per usual with that form builder, edit any of these questions, and of course, their answer types as well. This is a different one to the quiz. It has all of the possible answer types there as well. So you can have a bit more of that adventurous side with all those answer types. So dive in there, get signature captures, add resources if you want to, and all that kind of good stuff there. Beautiful. So that is the gist of what the induction checklist does. Reminder, it's for those kind of new employees or anyone new to the company that needs to be inducted in regards to their kind of journey with your business. Because it's added to the staff training aspect, it will link through to our different kind of completed forms and things like that, which I'm going to dive into in a second. Great. So we'll save that off. That is the gist of our induction checklist. Now we also have the on-site induction. Now this one here is quite special. It's got a nice hard coding through to the app where it links into this button up the top right. So as a user, I, Rochelle, have jumped onto the new build in Teams in Unit 3. And I needed to do my induction for that site. So up in the top right, you can see that I have got it all done. It's all ticked, it's green. But if I go to a different site where I might not have been inducted, it's red or paused if I've kind of drafted it. Let's find a red one, maybe Unit 2. Yes, so Unit 2, we've got that as red. I haven't been inducted to that site specifically. So that means I have this on-site induction that needs to be done. So that's how the team can see that form as its completion and if it needs to be done on a certain site. The main goal of this form is that it is new to the site inductions rather than a new employee. So in this form, again, same thing with the induction checklist. You can definitely edit it. So we go into the edit button, scroll on down to that form design, and yes, move around the questions. I'll change the questions if you need to, change the answer types if you need to, all that kind of good stuff. Perfect. I've also added into this form as well, different instruction text as well to show you what that looks like. And I've also even added in collapsible, what am I talking about? Conditional sections. I really can't speak English today, my goodness. So the conditional sections in this form are really helpful if you've kind of got different user groups or different kinds of groups of people or team members, for example, that you need to have a different kind of question answered within their induction. So for example, I've got here the site manager. So this is going to ask, are you a site manager? It gives me yes, no option. And then they click yes, and it pops up these questions below it. So it's only if they are a site manager that they have to answer those questions. If not, they just move past that kind of collapsible panel or conditional section, and then they can kind of just get the form done and not have to answer that section because they're not a site manager or a contractor, just as for the two examples I've got here. But yes, they're really handy in that induction form. So if you do want to have them, I would recommend kind of building in those different conditional sections like I have here. Just kind of create that header with the conditional section button, as I've done there. And then you can kind of pop in any questions you want in relation to that person below it. Awesome. All right, that is the gist of our general kind of staff training forms. And then in the mobile app, obviously we can find them either through the on-site induction button or in the ad hoc buttons as well, because mainly these forms will be gone to as and when required. Cool. All right. That is the gist of our forms as well then. And now I just want to quickly jump into the teams and users one more time so that we can go through the training history. So training history is from within a user. You can go into the training history icon here. And within this, there's a few different categories that we can kind of see in relation to what that team member has done in regards to their training and their certs and permits and all that kind of stuff as well. So from here, I'm going to start at the beginning. We've got completed resources. So Kale has gone and seen these resources in the mobile view, and he has kind of completed them or clicked to complete. These are documents that you upload from that resources tab. So in the very beginning, you remember we kind of went to the resources, we kind of jump into documents and upload those PDFs. Generally, people will do kind of SWIMs as the example here, or SOPs, or kind of, any kind of safe operating procedures or safe work method statements as well. So those are my examples for today, but you might have any other kind of documents or viewable PDFs that the team need to go and view and kind of complete as a part of their training. So we'll upload it as a document into the resources tab, and then the team can go into the mobile view, into the menu here, jump into resources, and I can see all of those documents that are loaded in that I might need to acknowledge for my training. So I'll go into maybe this job safety analysis, it's for example, for roofing, or the SWIMs maybe. So I'll open that up, I'll click complete. And then that shows, congratulations, SWIMS has been completed for my training. So that's all there loaded now against my user. So when I jump into my user account, I can go into the training history and see that here we've got that SWIMS document loaded against my name. Cool. So that is the completed resources option. Then we have our completed forms that reference CALE. So this one here is any form that has that staff training kind of hard-coded linking to it. It's got a kind of form type to it called staff training. That is going to link through here if CALE has been mentioned in it or if CALE has signed off on a form of the sort. That's why here you can see under CALE's one on the practice site, on the bungalow renovation, and a few different sites. We have got our on-site induction and also the competency register as well, completed on these dates. And then if I do need to go and see that document, I can open it up with the eye icon, and it gives me a view of what was answered within that form. You can see here the employee name was Cale Buchanan, so that means he was mentioned within the form, and that's why it's pulling through to our training history. Awesome. So this is how we can view all of those kind of completed forms for CALE specifically. Now we've got our quizzes. So as we can see, we've got that health and safety quiz that we just also went through. CALE's already done his one. So on the bungalow renovation, that was added in here, and we can open this up as well and see what kind of questions he might have gotten wrong or right. And we can kind of talk through that with CALE in regards to his training. Awesome. Moving through from the quizzes, we also have corrective actions that reference CALE. So as you may or may not know, inside at Pro, you can make corrective actions for your team members, or they can make them for each other as well. So say some action needs to be done, or someone's lost their PPE or something like that, and they need to get someone else to action it. They can go and make a corrective action in the app through a form or just from the menu bar as well. And then they can go and assign it to someone. So this is going to be assigned to CALE. As we can see here, assigned to, says Cale Buchanan, and then we can know that all of those different items have been assigned to him, and he's now either gone and kind of action them or not action them. They've got different priorities. We can see a few things are still to do for Cale, so we might have to follow up on him. Easy peasy. So that is kind of where we get that all in one location in regards to that one user. Now we can also export this out. So say I want to send this as a report to CALE, maybe. I can go and print it off to make a kind of a PDF version, or I can just email it out if I need to as well. So really handy if we need to kind of get this whole history of training as a little report for CALE. Easy. Okay. That is the gist of your kind of staff training history for your users, and definitely dive into each one if you need to kind of hone in on every single person. But this is kind of where we can go to see all of that in that little report for that one person. Great. Okay. Last little thing I want to touch on now is your reports tab. So in here, you can see that we've got different kind of tiles in your summary reports. Within your summary reports, there's a few different ones we can use for training. So it gathers all the information into one nice place. For example, you've got your quiz summary. So this is all of the quizzes that I have completed within the last 7 days. So really keep in mind the date range that you've got set. We want to make sure that it is actually based on what you want to see. So maybe you want to look at this year altogether. We could go into custom and go from January till now, or even in the last 7 days, I can just see who's done a quiz or any kind of training documentation. So my quizzes here, I can see that I've got one done, nice and beautiful today. And then I've also got CALE's one that was done yesterday. So that's all completed. We can see our scores. I can even open up that form, see those answers as well. So we can kind of go and hone in on that. Awesome. All right, then we have our training summary. So this is going to be a kind of summarization of all those forms that, again, are hard-coded to that training kind of type, where we've got that staff training form type. And then we've got all our inductions coming through here, any kind of quizzes and things that might be attached to that hard coding as well. But yes, this is where we can see all the form completion come into one place across different users. So I can then, again, open up the form, see what kind of answers were provided, scrolling all the way through if we can see if there was a site manager or a contractor, so that area is not opened, which is fine. And then if I want to export that out as well, I can go up into the top right. We've got printing option, which gives us the PDF view. We've got the emailing out option there as well. And if you do want to make a corrective action in relation to these forms being completed, we can then go make those corrective actions for certain people too. Awesome. So that is the gist of those different summaries we can capture within your reporting as well. Beautiful. That is pretty much the gist of what we can gather all together. So first off, certs and permits is definitely one we want to be loading in against the user that they're specific to. But obviously certs and permits can be loaded in regards to many things within SiteApp Pro. And then you want to find those in the resources tab to kind of hone in on specific registers of certain certificates and permits for specific users and export that out. And then in the mobile view, we can go into the menu bar and jump into the user to see that user's specific certs and permits. Awesome. Then we have got those forms that we want to complete. So the quizzes we can build. We can also look into the induction forms and edit those a little bit to suit us best, adding in conditional sections and all that kind of stuff. And obviously as well, if you want to, you can create your own custom training form too. So making sure that we choose that training category. So it all kind of links in a bit more. But yes, we can have those kind of customizable, your kind of training forms if you want to, just starting from blank with a regular form. And then we also have obviously different certs and permits and things coming through to your training history. So that's that one here, where you can see that beautiful summarized view of one user. And then your reports is where we can kind of go through to get more of a company-wide summarization of those completions. So quizzes, and then also your form completion. Awesome. All right. That is the gist with the general idea of training for your staff. So what we're going to do now is jump into our Q&A section. So get all those questions in. I know Sophie's been jumping into a few already, which is awesome, but definitely get them through. And Sophie's going to join me now to get those flowing. Hey, Soph. How are you doing?
That was awesome. That was so great. And we have had so many questions come through. So yeah, there's a lot to cover. I'll recap some of the questions, but I'll start with some of the Q&As that are fresh at the moment that I haven't got around to answering. But if anyone does have any more, try and pop them in the Q&A just so we can keep track of them a little bit more. And if anyone has any feedback or use cases on how they're currently handling their staff training, feel free to pop that in the chat side as well so people can see different examples so we can all kind of help each other learn the different ways to use SiteApp Pro for that as well. So I guess getting started, we've had Ben ask a question around whether a quiz can be completed through a tablet manager's app platform, but have it assigned to another employee to kind of capture the signature and things like that. So currently how it will work is that if you are on a tablet manager and you complete a quiz, that will just store it against the profile that you're logged in under. So you won't be able to kind of assign that to someone else. You would need them to kind of log in on their own device to complete that form so that it's saved against their own user profile. If you find you do complete forms more on like a team-based model and you purely just have like one tablet on site that everyone, works on as well, then we can look at changing things in the back end so it's more of just a shared profile view, and when you click save you can kind of choose who answers the form. But if you're doing the per user model like it's set up right now by default, then it will just be saved against that specific user's profile at the moment. Cool. Next one, we were kind of looking at reminders for certs and permits, Rochelle. We've had a few questions come through for that one. So yeah, how can you go over the reminders, the user notifications, and how they handle that side of things?
Yeah, for sure. I'm just going to jump back into our account over here. So as you can see in the Teams and Users section, you can actually see that we've got some notifications next to Kale as an example. So I'm going to open up his one to start with. We'll go down to the bottom here and you can see those user notifications that are selected. So anything, because we've uploaded most of our training documents as certificates expiries, we're going to have this toggle here for certificate expiries to be either in-app or email. so that those kind of expiry dates will be notified to this person when they're kind of coming up. It generally comes up like 15 days when it's coming up, and then overdue as well. So with this, I do recommend that we would keep it to an administrator. The main reason is because a certificate expiry notification does come through in regards to all certs and permits expiries. So you might want to just kind of have an administrator get these notifications through email, or generally people want an email, but you can have it in app as well if you want. And then from there, they can go and triage out to the right people. So maybe Kale's first aid certificate is expiring. It'll email through to me because I'm the administrator, and then I know, okay, I need to give him a corrective action through the app, or just email it straight through to him to be like, hey, can I have your new updated version so I can change over that information, and roll up to the resources section to go into his first aid certificate part, change over the upload or the view of it, and then change over the expiry date too, so that that's all fresh and newly updated.
Oh, perfect. And then I guess while we're on certificates and permits, do you want to talk about the like privacy settings for different user roles? So we've had a question come through on whether field workers can see other people's certificates and permits when they're on site, and can managers see them, and those sides of things.
Yeah, great. So this is all generally a view within the mobile view. Admins and managers can obviously see the admin console. So they have that kind of web view, and a bit more access to all the certs and permits. So from that end of things, those higher level user roles definitely do have that access. And that is obviously selected through the role section. And then we can kind of choose either admin or manager. But if we do choose someone to be a field worker, let's start at the bottom. So field worker, they are that lowest level of access, similar to a contractor as well. They are going to be able to see their own certificates and permits by going into the mobile view, choosing the users section, and searching their name. So if I look at myself, I can click into this, scroll down, and see my certificates and permits, but I won't be able to see maybe Sophie's or Kale's ones instead. Then you've got that next level up, which is your tablet manager. And this is generally going to be your site foreman's or kind of a site manager overarching. They might need to see all the field workers' kind of documentation, or show it or deliver it to someone if they need to. So they can jump into the mobile view and search any field worker's name and see their certs and permits and their own certs and permits. But say Sophie is a tablet manager, I won't be able to see her certs and permits because she's at the same level as me. Same thing applies for a manager in the mobile view. So a manager will jump in, be able to see their own stuff, and be able to see a tablet manager or field workers because they're below them, but I couldn't see another manager's certs and permits. So those are the kind of differences there with the different user groups, user roles, and what they can kind of see within the app.
Awesome. Cool. We had another question come through that I might tackle if I can find it. Sean's just asked about a language function, having obviously working with a diverse group of people, and trying to make it as easy as possible for them to, mitigate risk of just language communication, errors or miscommunication. We don't really have different language functions in the app, but the best use case I've seen happen in the past is utilizing user groups for this. So if you do have people who are have a language of preference that's not the one you've already set up, which is English by default, you could use user groups. So you could create a user group for a different language, say they speak French. So you can make a French speaking user group, and then you could build forms with that language, and put those into that specific user group as well. So then when those then users see those forms, they'll then be in French. So that is a way to do it. However, just keep in mind then when it comes back to reporting, it won't then, translate again back to English. So you do just need to be confident that, they can see that. The other option is we could work with you as well. So you could have, I know Rochelle showed in the form builder when she was showing the quiz and the induction form, you could add in like a collapsible panel that has an English version and then one that has a French version if we go on the same use case. So I'd say user groups are probably the best thing to try and explore for that one. But Sean, feel free to reach out to us, or if anyone else does, work with lots of different languages as well. And we can try and explore that to see if we can help further with that one. Cool. So we've had a few questions around customizing the frequency of those reminders, or we've got it preset to 15 days before. It is currently just hard coded to 15 days at the moment, but feel free to send your feedback through on that, because we can look at customizing that in the future and have a chat with our product team about that down the line as well. Awesome. So we have so many questions. We've had a few questions around check in and out. Rochelle, do you mind showing us on form reports, like the check in and out report, and how you can kind of filter it down per user and per site as well?
Yeah, cool. Great. So obviously within our reports tab here is where we want to go. Then we're going to jump into form reports up the top. At the top, you can also see your check in and out. That generally is one of the top ones that pops up. So I have 6 within that last 7 days. So again, focusing on that date range so you can get the right duration you want to capture. And I'm going to go and pick this orange kind of document to the right. This is going to pull out a CSV kind of format of all of those forms and then all the answers within them to the right of it. Once you have this, I have a few different sites kind of showing up, as you can see, under my sites, projects, or jobs section or category. So I do want to maybe filter this down and only see maybe the bungalow renovation. So I'm going to go into select sites, just choose the bungalow renovation, and then that's now going to show me just those ones so I can really hone in on that site specifically. You are able to select a few, so you might want to grab 2 or 3, go ahead and grab those so you're really getting exactly that filter you need. The same thing applies for answers. If you know there's a specific answer you want to capture within it, go for that too, and then that will pull in the right ones. Mainly kind of things like the name, if you want to pull through a specific person that you want to capture all the check in and outs for, we could go filter answers, choose maybe Rochelle, and it'll pull through just my ones there. And then last thing as well, in regards to exporting this, you might not want every single column within your report. So for example, the repeat ID is one that you might not want. So you can just kind of change that column to kind of exit out if you need to. And then when we kind of print it to PDF or email it out, it won't have that column in there. And then lastly, when you want to export this as a CSV, maybe it'll have all those columns ready to go there for you. Cool.
Cool. Another question, this is from Sean. So if a contractor doesn't have the app, would they be able to use a manager's tablet or app to fill out the necessary stuff? So maybe just talking about the staff selects drop down within a form. That's probably the best way. And then I can expand on that after that as well.
Yeah, definitely. So as we were talking about before, there is that kind of completion of different people being mentioned within a form. So when I was going into that induction, we'll use that as the example. I'll use our on-site induction. Within here, there's different answer types you can utilize. So name, for example, will be that staff list select from option there. This will pull a drop down of anyone who's loaded into Teams and users, whether they're a staff without a login or a staff member with a login. So you could load in any contractor without that login, so they don't have to kind of access any other apps kind of forms or search permits and all that stuff, but they definitely can be acknowledged within an induction. So you could do that with maybe, actually I might even use that induction checklist, because that's the one we will use more when someone kind of is new to the company to join you. So a contractor in this example would come on, you would find this form ad hoc from the app, and then we would have that answer type built into here so that they can kind of have their list, their name drop down if you need it. Now, also, you might not have had that person loaded in as a staff without login yet. So what you can do is just add another question that's maybe unrequired that might have just kind of typing your name out as the option instead for the answer type, just so that you can kind of have all bases crossed. You have your staff list drop down covered, and you also have the short text as an answer type so that they can just pop their name in if they need to as well.
Oh, we are also, I guess, to throw a little teaser in there for our next release, we're focusing a lot on managing contractors and subcontractors and making that a lot easier for everyone who does work with them. So, a small teaser, we're looking at introducing more of a kind of contractor portal where, contractors will be able to manage their users and things like that to be able to make it easier for you guys and do things like send documents for your approval and all those things that are super important to making sure both your employees but also contractors are safe on your sites as well. So stay tuned for that. We're having a release this year and there's a few quite big features coming into it, which we're really excited about. We're also looking at potentially, so take this with a grain of salt, but I've seen a question come through about our QR code. So for those of you who know already, we do have a visitor register QR code associated to our sites. And that is currently aimed so that visitors who are just popping into a site can just scan the QR code, kind of like how the old COVID tracker used to work, scan it to check in and scan it to check out. We're looking at advancing this slightly just as a phase one approach to adding some questions on here. So if you do have a last minute contractor pop up, they might be able to engage with a few really basic level induction type questions, which you could then expand on later as well. And then finally, a feature we do already have is that you can also add users from the mobile app. So as Rochelle was saying, you could use that staff list drop down within a form. And we've got a really simple onboarding for users from the mobile app. If you've got a contractor show up to a site, it's really easy. We added it in the last release and all they need to do is you add in a few details for them. They scan a QR code and then it opens up the app and logs them in straight away. So it's a super easy user experience for them as well. So yeah, trying to expand that as much as possible because I know, you can get your team and encourage them and really influence them, but then influencing contractors is a whole nother story. So trying to make that experience user friendly as well is something we're really trying to focus on too. Okay. Rochelle, we have another question. Can you put a deadline to complete a quiz? So maybe just talking about a corrective action to send a quiz through and how that would work.
Yeah, sure. So with those ones there, you can either do this from admin side of things. You can definitely create a corrective action within the admin console. So there's a few ways you could do that. In the dashboard, we could kind of jump in to your corrective action section, which is down here. And you can kind of export this kind of this report out, and then we can kind of make new ones by just typing it into the bottom here, and then put in what you need to be done. Maybe like complete this quiz, and then you can say when it needs, if its status is already completed or started or whatever. Put that kind of assignee to it, and then the due date for it as well. And you can even link in any ad hoc forms or resources. So this is where we would link through that ad hoc quiz you'd want them to kind of complete. So that's one way to do it from the admin console. And then from the mobile view, you want to just go into the menu. So this is more for if you've got maybe a tablet manager user role who, like a site manager or site foreman or something like that, that will need to assign this to their field workers. They would go into the action section, go into the plus button up the top right. And in here, they can just type in, please complete this quiz or complete this training form, assign it to whoever they need to, put the date to it as well, all that kind of good stuff. And then again, go in ad hoc form, link that through, choose which quiz they want, and then that will send through to that user in their to-do list. So they can kind of see from here, if I go to my to-do list, it'll show up here based on that kind of date that you set to it. It'll show up either today, this week's, or this month's kind of tasks to be done.
Cool. Beautiful. Yeah, those corrective actions are really great. If people aren't utilizing them, we highly recommend you to, because it's just such a great way to engage your team as well to complete certain tasks, because you've got full reports and dashboard views of who's doing what on site at all times as well. So it definitely helps remind people to do things, because we know there's so much that goes on throughout the day that corrective actions will hopefully take some of the load off your to-do list. When a first aid certificate has been revalidated, would you load a new entry for this or just add the original expiry date? There's obviously it's personal preference, but do you want to walk through that side?
Yeah. So we started off by loading it in against Kale as our example today. So I'm going to use Kale again. We'll go into the edit button for Kale's account. And then within those resources here, let's say that he has sent me through, made that corrective action because I got that expiry notification come through to me as an admin. I've asked him to send that new certificate through to me. So now I've got his new first aid certificate and I need to change it over. So I'm going into that one that I've loaded in already that is now overdue. I'll edit that. I can see here that that's the old one. So I just go upload and then I'll choose from my documents that he sent to me and flick that one in and it just replaces them nice and easy. So you don't need to make a new entry as such. It just kind of replaces what was already there. And then you can go in and change that expiry date as well. So that's new and updated too.
Cool. We've had a few questions and I guess feedback around geofencing around jobs to prompt sign in and sign out. We have definitely spoken about this in the past. And so we're definitely aware that it would be an absolute game changer. We've just been hesitant in the past because so many people kind of turn off their location services and there's a, data and service problem there as well. But I'll keep sending that feedback through to see if it's something the team will explore. As Jacqueline said, we do have the site close time feature that's also really helpful for this use case. So when you set up a site, you can, in some of our packs, add a site close time. So say, I would like this job to be closed at 5 p.m. Everyone who's still checked in at that time will get a notification if they're still checked in by that time. So that's probably the best sort of engagement we can get to prompt people to check out. But I will pass all that feedback through to the team to see if we can do that further as well. Okay, last couple of questions. And then we'll probably wrap this up, but I can't believe there's still so many of you tuning into all these questions. It's great. But Sean's just asking, is it possible to link our existing software to the app to efficiently load jobs through, and vice versa if we want to collect information from our archive storage, e.g. Google Drive? So I'll tackle this one, Shell. The jobs side, definitely from our end, we can integrate in some of our pricing packs with a lot of job management tools. We use a kind of third-party tool called Zapier for a lot of them. And then some of them we do a direct API like Procore. So we can link that to SiteApp Pro to take that manual load off your team. So say if you're using a tool like SimPro or something like that, if you add a job in there, it can automatically be added into SiteApp Pro so that you don't have to do that manual load. So if you are interested in an integration, please let us know. It usually does come with a bit of a fee depending on your pack, but it's something we can explore. A lot of the time it is just dependent on if the other software that you use also talks to our system. So it's kind of a two-way thing that we need to start exploring. With data storage, we currently more just receive integrations that come into SiteApp Pro as opposed to sending things out of SiteApp Pro at the moment. But integrations is definitely a big internal topic and buzzword. So if you do have suggestions or ideas of integrations that would make a big difference to your company, please just email us to let us know and we can start to explore to see if any are a potential that we could explore down the track too. So yeah, that's the spiel on integrations, but they do save a whole lot of time. So if you're interested, please reach out to us and we'll be able to help from there. But yeah, I think that's all the questions. I see you're tackling that last one in there, Shell. So yeah. Once you're done, I might pass it back to you. But thanks everyone for tuning in. It's been great to have everyone here. And I think Rochelle's just got maybe some last couple of things to go over before we sign off.
Definitely. Awesome. Cool. I'll just quickly answer Ben with this one about the CSV. She might just verbally do it, so it's nice and easy. So he's just asked if, just to be clear, that within the resources section of the mobile, also the admin console, we go in here and when we want to kind of get out that register of the certs and permits, we will just export the list and then you can choose that staff member that you want to choose it from and it's going to pull out all of their certs and permits, so not just a specific one. And then when you get into your CSV externally, you can then filter down exactly if you do want to find a certain permit or maybe a couple, so you want first aid and a qualification maybe. So we can kind of just have those two filtered in like Excel and then export or delete all the other stuff that you don't need. So it's just a nice, easy way that you can kind of clean up that list once you've exported all the data out. So you know you have it all based on the users you've chosen, and then you can clean up that list based on what you actually need to report out on. So that is the gist of that export. Hopefully that answers your question there properly, Ben. But yes, cool. I think there was also, did you cover that? Yes, you covered the Sean one. Awesome. That's great. All right. That is the gist, I think, for everyone. So thank you so much, guys. I'm just going to quickly touch on those last few resources that I did have for you as well. So firstly, SciDat Pro support is this email here that you can kind of reach out to at any point for any technical questions or anything you really want to get some guidance on in regards to SciDat Pro. So we've got an awesome support team. Definitely lean on them when you need to. And then we've also got our Video Education Center, which is where you can find a few videos that dive deeper into specific kind of features. Definitely staff training will be part of this, and we can kind of find other things there too. And then any webinars as well. So I currently have a weekly one that kind of comes up that is going to be just kind of going through the getting started stuff and just your general flow in the beginning. But on a monthly basis, we're going to keep having these kind of feature dive-ins. So definitely keep an eye out on those. It's going to be on the Video Education Center, and this link will come through to you in the email after this. But yes, that is the gist of your staff training with SciDat Pro. So please kind of add your love in regards to our survey after this, and then also kind of go into any of those resources you need to dive in a bit deeper. And then, yeah, live your best life, guys. You're going to thrive. I can see it now. Awesome. Well, thank you very much, and have a lovely day.